casting between the high and the mighty who are arranging this trial. On the night of Lockerbie, about as many people as are here tonight, about the same average age perhaps, were slaughtered in one fell swoop by somebody getting their revenge. The trial convinced me that it was not Megrahi who was involved in that. And I think we should remember that the UN appointed a special observer to the trial called Professor Hans Kochler of Vienna. He has said publicly that this verdict was totally impossible and incredible, and he's even gone so far as to say that in order to achieve it, the Scottish Crown Office, that's the prosecuting authority, had acted in a deliberately improper manner. So I want you not to spare me tonight, but to ask me questions as to why I believe that Megrahi was not involved. And I want you to know that just as terrible as it was when she was killed, I don't want her memory to be couched in terms of lies and hypocrisy, a tirade of which I believe I heard in that court. Thank you, Jim.
Jim Swire, thank you very much indeed. You mentioned the UN Special Observer. He's not the oracle, he's not the repository of all truth. He's one man who gave his opinion, didn't he?
If you could find me someone who is the oracle, I'd be very grateful.
The Scottish Review Commission didn't say that Al-Megrahi was innocent. In fact, they went so far as to say they came across evidence that implied guilt. Guilt as well as innocence.
Indeed.
Some of what we have discovered, they said, may imply innocence. Some of what we have discovered may imply guilt. You're much more certain than they are. They've seen a lot more documents than you have. And a lot more interviews than you went through.
No doubt.
With great respect.
Yeah, I agree it's an issue of doubt. But because it's an issue of doubt, we needed to see that appeal complete. I don't know why Abdelbasid al-Megrahi withdrew his appeal. He did so before he knew what Kenny McCaskill, who I've also met incidentally, was going to do.
He did so having changed his story on a number of occasions. There's something else which the Scottish Review Commission pointed out.
His comments to me were always that he put clearing his name above even returning to his beloved family. And
but if he was so keen on doing that, you'd think he'd have got his story straight in his own mind. Why was he giving them a different story before the trial and a different one afterwards?
I think people in different degrees of stress often give different stories.
Even when they're innocent?
That's my experience as a doctor. And I see that the motion deplores his release. I am delighted by his release. I have met him and felt him to be a man who was not angry and blustering and trying to prove his innocence to me in that way. He was calm, he was collected. He would say every time that he wanted to clear his name before he went home. And I think it's a tragedy that he wasn't able to do that. And I would lay the blame for that delay very largely again at the door of the Crown Office in Scotland, who took many months during the start-up of this appeal to get the appeal story going, with the result that it could not be heard before it became desperately urgent to let him go home.
Dr. Swire, you are, through the saddest of circumstances, the only man in this hall who can answer this question from the standpoint of someone who lost a relative. Was releasing Al-Megrahi, a man convicted of causing the death of 270 people, was that release a fitting tribute to your daughter and the others?
That's a very good question, and ever since it's happened, I have realized just how difficult my position is, because when I say to people who believe that he was guilty, hang on a minute, look at this, look at that, what do you think? I know that I'm cast in the mold of somebody who is undermining other people's grieving processes, and I don't like that one bit. They've had enough to go through without my making it more difficult for them. But yes, Flora...
And you have made it more difficult for them.
I have made it more difficult for them, but I believe there is justification for that. Flora was an honest girl, a very highly intelligent young doctor, and I think she would be proud of what we're trying to do. And I think that that is the gist and really the whole purpose of the campaign that we've mounted ever since, despite the downsides of making other relatives perhaps suffer marginally more than they might otherwise have done. And I regret that.
Jim Swire, thank you very much indeed. All right, just a reminder that the motion we're discussing is this House deplores the release of the Lockerbie bomber to Libya. It's time now that we can take questions. There's a lady right at the back. We'll get a microphone to you.
I'm Iraqi. My question is directed to Mr. Al-Gamaty, or Gamaty, my apologies. It seems like your anger is misdirected more towards the Libyan regime than it is towards Al-Megrahi. Is that true?
Can I answer?
Please, please.
Absolutely. You know, just think about it. Do you think that Abdul Basit al-Megrahi just woke up one morning and say, today I feel like plotting to blow up a Pan Am airliner over the mid-Atlantic and kill 270 people? It doesn't happen like that. Abdul Basit al-Megrahi probably was a very small pawn in a very elaborate and extensive plan. There are many, many other people, much more senior, much more higher than Abdul Basit al-Megrahi, who wanted to do this horrendous crime. Probably not just Libyans. There are probably others as well, other parties. There could be some Arab groups. There could be some non-Arab countries in this region. So Abdul Basit al-Megrahi is a victim. He has been used. The real perpetrators are states, are senior intelligence officers, are rulers of countries. You cannot do something like this in a country like Libya without it being auctioned and sanctioned from the highest position. So that is why I'm saying...
Dr. Fetouri.
I just have to make a comment. I mean, that's a perfect question.